I want to follow up with a discussion about work, because work is something you can either enjoy or you can hate, or simultaneously, both at the same time, right? And it depends. And we look at the book Ecclesiastes, and we're going to read just a lot of scriptures. We just survey Ecclesiastes and this idea of work. So I want you to open your Bibles and read along as much as you can. But Solomon is going to deal with this subject extensively in the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, this letter or this book is challenging because of this phrase, life under the sun. And I'll explain why as we go through it. Because when you look under this, we find that it begins with this phrase, vanity of vanity, says the preacher. That's Solomon's self-identification. He's the preacher of wisdom. Vanity to vanity, it's all vain. Vanity. He ends in chapter 12, verse 8, with the same phrase. So everything in between can be quite depressing and dismal, like, hey, it's all worthless anyway. Because what does vanity mean? Meaningless, emptiness, that's void, without any purpose. Like, I just kind of wasted my time. Well, that was in vain, right? And when he looks at life that way, you're like, wow, this sounds like a depressing book. I don't want to look at it at all. Yes, Clinton.
Well, there is nothing better for a man than he should eat and drink.
Well, you're getting ahead of me. You're right, though. All right. So how are we going to understand it? Clinton's on top of it. You are. So it's all in the phrase life under the sun. Because you've heard me talk about life above the ark. And what do I mean by that? We live in a physical realm. There's three dimensions, 2 dimensions. We got the earth, the heavens where the birds fly, the heavens where the stars are. Then there's this invisible ark, and what's above that? The third heaven, where God is. We're in the physical realm. That's the spiritual realm. So life under the sun is life in the first 2 dimensions. The first heavens where the atmosphere is, the second heavens where the sun is. It's viewing life as if there is no God. You with me? Now, we know there is a God, but as you walk through this earth, you're like, what am I doing here? Sometimes it becomes, it feels like it's vanity, and it is drearisome. If you look at life on this earth, you're not going to find meaning like you want. But when you interject God back into the picture, it all makes sense. So Solomon does this wonderful expose about work. And one guy who wrote about work, Paul Stevens, writes this: work under the sun, I'm talking about any kind of labor you might do, is impermanent. What does that mean? It doesn't last. I don't care what you do or how long you do it. It's not going to be here for very long. Unappreciated by most, without results, unfair, because you never really get what it's worth, and it's seductive because you think, man, if I just build bigger and better, I'll become richer and more famous, it'll have some value. No. And now Solomon's going to show us that as he looks at it, because I like doing word counts, and you know me. The word vanity is used 16 times in this book, so that's the underlying theme, right? Like life under the sun without God is kind of void. But notice how many times labor and work are used. 19 times for labor and work, so that's 31. It's twice as many times. And so is there a connection between what you're doing with your life on this earth, work and labor, and vanity? Yeah, life in the sun is vain, and all you're doing is what? Working, and labor is that toilsome, it's more than just working, it's the toiling, where you're just tired and weary, okay? The work is just creating something. So we're going to look at how people approach work, and when living a quiet life, the proper attitude towards work, because there's 2 extremes. The one extreme is, man, if I could become the richest, or I own the most, or build the biggest, if I can be top dog, then I'll feel happy. And work and stuff becomes like an idol, right? The other extreme is what? Exactly. Hey, it's all worthless. It's meaningless. You're just going to die. I'm just not going to do anything. I just want handouts. Now, those are 2 extremes, and God's going to frown and condemn both of them. So the answer is always somewhere in the middle, okay? And Psalm's going to test those because the book is full of this concept about work. I'll just give you a few examples. In chapter 4, verse 9, this is a wisdom about work. Two are better than one. Now, I don't know if he's talking about the oxen or the person, but wouldn't you rather pull behind two oxen rather than one? And when we have a work party and then two people show up, that's better than one person, isn't it? And when you have 15, that's even better. And so that's what he said. They got a good reward for their toil. And I don't care if you're building a house, the same wisdom's there. And the questions that people ask is, what advantage does a man have on his work? So you build that house, are you going to own it? Generally, are you going to own that house if that's your job, building homes? Will they take care of it? Maybe. Will they appreciate all the labor you put into it? Maybe. How long will that house last? In the big picture, not very long. What's something old in this United States? I'm talking about a building or a house. If it's 200 years old on the East Coast, that's old, right? And you go to Europe, they might be 1,000 years old, but after that, you don't really see anything. It's gone, right? And so I don't care if you're building a house or you're building a family, because do all of mothers, are they toiling and laboring? When they're building a family, that's more important than building a home. You know, building a family's better. And so the question is asked throughout here, what is the profit there to the worker from which he toils? He said, I've seen the task which God has given the sons of men to occupy themselves. And he said, it's grievous. Now that's going to be the tone. So let's look at Solomon's approach. And we're going to be in chapter 2 to start with. And he says, I'm going to take the extreme approach. I'm going to do the best, get the most, build the biggest. Because what do we know about King Solomon? First, about what did he have here? All the wisdom in the world. So if he's going to test to find out answer about how work can really please you, the wisest man in the world, do you think he'd have the ability to figure that out? Now, when he prayed for wisdom, God said, since you didn't ask for wealth and you asked for wisdom, which is better, I'm going to make you the richest man in the world too. So he had both what? The smarts, the wisdom, plus the wealth. Now add one more thing to him. What did he have? He was what? Well, yes, but I'm talking about an earthly point of view. He's king. Who's in charge of everything? Well, no, under the sun. Under the sun. He is. So he's got all the power, all the money, and all the smarts. Can anyone figure it out? If it's not Solomon, who would it be? So he says, man, I'm just going to do everything I can to prove that you can find some pleasure in stuff. So let's read, and we're going to just go through a bunch of these. Verse 1, he says, come now, see verse 1 of chapter 2, I'm going to test you with pleasure. In other words, I'm going to build things for my own pleasure. Look, verse 4. I enlarged my works. I built houses, plural, for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself. And I planted in them all kinds of fruits. And I made ponds of water for myself, which irrigate the forest of growing trees. And then he talks about all the slaves that he acquired and the flocks. And in verse 8, silver and gold and singers. Then verse 9, I became great and increased more than all preceded me in Jerusalem. And my wisdom stood by me. This guy had everything you dreamed about to extreme, right? Houses and beautiful gardens and ponds and workers and vineyards and forests. What's his conclusion? When it's all done. Thus I considered, verse 11, all my activities, which my hands had done, right? And the labor which I exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after the wind. I love that phrase. What does it mean, striving after the wind? Yeah, you can catch a balloon maybe carried by the wind, but can you catch the wind and grab it by the tail and bring it back? That's a beautiful phrase to look at the folly of this trying to find purpose and meaning and fulfillment in stuff. Now, he could test it to the nth degree because he had all the power, money, and wisdom, right? And so we need to learn from Solomon, like, well, I'd be happy, and if I could just have one house, then my life would be. No, you wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. There's got to be something more. And that's what he's teaching us here. And so when we look at that, this search for meaning goes on. Because notice what he says in verse 16. For there is no lasting remembrance of the wise man as with the fool. Now here's the problem. Inasmuch as the coming days will be forgotten, and how the wise man and the fool all alike die. So I hated life. For the work which had been done under the sun was grievous to me, because everything is futility and striving after wind. Now, if you go down this path too far, you're just going to commit suicide, right? But doesn't it sound pretty sad? But the big equalizer, he says, between me, the wise guy that had everything, could do anything I want, and the fool is what? What's the big equalizer? We both die. Now, Solomon was wrong. We do remember him and his wisdom, don't we? But most people do remember the great people that lived in the past. No, there's very few exceptions. George Washington, we know who he is. You know who Napoleon is. There's very few of the billions of people that live that we know their names. Most of them, they're just forgotten, and they're forgotten just like the fool's name. And for really, this death just puts you on the same plane, doesn't it? So he says, it's grievous. I hated life. Didn't that sound sad? Now, he's going through a journey here. I think we all go through this journey as well. We're trying to live a quiet life and find some kind of purpose and meaning and pleasure. We're going to get there. But you got to understand the problem first, okay? Because we all die. And it's your houses and everything you build are just going to rot. So, verse 18. I hated all the fruit of my labor. All those gardens. You know, when you get older, the stuff that you acquired doesn't have as much meaning, does it? And, you know, we talk about downsizing because, well, it was fun acquiring it, but it doesn't really serve me a lot of purpose. Now, actually, it's a burden taking care of it, right? I hated all the fruit of my labor for which I labored under sun. Notice all the words for labor and work. He worked hard as a king, like all of us. I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And that's even sad because you built it. Who gets to enjoy it? Somebody else. And it's amazing. We remodel our house. We get it the way we finally want it in order to sell it. How many have done that? You know, like you ask, so why didn't I fix it up so we could enjoy it while we live there? But no, we get it all perfect so we get the top dollar before we sell it. Then someone else gets to enjoy the fruit of our labor. Is that vanity to a certain degree? Like those extra dollars are going to make me happier? What? Well, it is smart, but why did he do it before? So who knows whether it be a wise man or fool that'll get what you have. They might run your company into ground. They might destroy everything you've done, built. Yet he will have control over all the fruit of my labor, which I've labored by acting wisely under the sun. He said, this is vanity. I might build it, some other guy gets to enjoy it and destroy it. He won't care because he didn't put an ounce of energy. Is that true pretty much for the United States? People are enjoying the fruit of previous generations' labor. Absolutely. And do they appreciate it? And the work that went into it, in many ways, are they foolish in destroying it? Yes. Heather.
I'm just reminded of our house in Coeur d'Alene. I think it's a good example. Because I came back to it, and they had overgrown trees.
Yeah.
And they had like these shutters closing up the windows. You couldn't even see.
Like they're growing pot inside or something. Yeah. Yeah. I know, it happens, doesn't it? Yeah. Right. That's life under the sun. And he's testing it. And so if you feel that, you're right along your companions with Solomon. But there's an answer, so don't give up, all right? And so he goes on. He's going to sink a little lower here. I completely despaired. In other words, I hated my life. I completely despaired of all the fruit of my labor, which I had labored in the sun. Because there's a man who has labored with wisdom, knowledge and skill, and he gives his legacy to one who has not labored with them. This too is vanity and a great evil. You did nothing, but you get to enjoy it all. For what does a man get in all his labor and his striving which he labors in his son? Death. That's what he gets, right? Because of all his days, his task is painful and grievous. Even at night, his mind doesn't rest. Oh, is that true? When you're building and working and striving to keep what you acquired, does your mind rest? No, you stay up at night, and the next night comes along and enjoys it, and he sleeps like a baby, right? He said, this is vanity. So why does man work? Why do we continue to work? We all do. We're going to talk about that because he's going to give us some very good insight. But working is part of our spiritual DNA. And Mariana even alluded to it, that man and Adam and Eve in the garden, God gave them a job. What was it? They had to take care of the garden. I didn't grow thorns and thistles, but did they have to work in the garden? Yes. And God is a creator himself, isn't he? He created, in 6 days he worked, and it was a mess, right? It was void and without form. And he created cosmos out of the chaos and made it ordered and beautiful. So on the 6th day, he said it was very good. And then he rested. Man, with the spiritual DNA of God, made in his offspring, in his image, we are made, men and women, to work and be productive, because that's what we do. That's when we're the happiest. When we're accomplishing something, we're creating some with our hands, because sometimes it's the end result that is really enjoyable, but most often it's the journey getting there. Just the process of building and creating, and when you're done, there's inner satisfaction. You're like, man, look at that, isn't that nice? And you feel like you've done something of value, but how long does that last? Solomon says, not very long, and then someone else gets to enjoy it. But that's why we work. It's part of our spiritual makeup. And people that don't work are usually the most unhappy and depressed people there are. And we'll talk about universal income in just a second. Boy, we're not going to get political. Yeah, we are. Verse 24. Here's the first hint at the answer of how to make sense of life under the sun. There's nothing better for a man to what? Eat and drink and tell himself, remind yourself, labor's good. That's when you're the happiest. That's when you're at your best. But not only is the process good, but what? What are you supposed to do when you get the harvest? Eat and drink. You with me? Enjoy the fruit of your labor. This is a hint. Now, he's going to come back to this time and time after again in the book of Ecclesiastes. But I want you to see this phrase. Enjoying the fruit of your labor and working, being good. This is from where? Where does this come from? It's part of how he created you spiritually. You're at your best when you're working and producing and creating. I don't care what it is. If it's plowing the field behind those oxen or building a home, or more important, building a family. You feel good, even though it's grievous and tireless. You enjoy the process and the little joys and perks along the way. And then when it's done, you enjoy the fruit of your labor by eating and drinking. Okay, let's come back to that. Now, he goes back to some of the questioning because we have to understand the questions. What profit is there to the worker from that which he toils? I've seen the task which God has given the sons of men with which to occupy themselves. Then it's all the same. He has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in his heart. I highlight that phrase because that's very important. Yet so man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end. So he's given us a task, right? Isn't that what it says? For the sons of men to occupy themselves. But he also has set eternity in our hearts. What in the world does that mean? Set eternity in your hearts. Any ideas?
Seeking the higher power. Always seeking higher. Always seeking the next.
Now we need to, but what is that connection with that in eternity?
Where we're going to spend it.
Okay, there you go. Okay, more than just this life. We all know intuitively that even though we just live a little while on this earth, there's something else coming. And also, go ahead, Mary. Okay, I'll come back to it then if you want. Heather?
Saying, but I think the weight of our impending death. I mean, I was just watching some interviews on YouTube not too long ago, and they're just both of them, and they're in the spotlight. These people, they were both having a real conversation, both acknowledging, like, I'm afraid of dying because that's the end of the physical world as we know it, and
Okay.
that doesn't really talk about what comes next.
Right.
But
And I think that's all these things that surround this idea of eternity in your heart. You realize that our time on this earth is just a breath. And yet I invest so much in this time, and if this doesn't last and this doesn't work out, my whole life is ruined. No. It is so temporary. Everything you build, everything you do will be gone or given to someone else, and you won't even miss a bit of it. And we all know that intuitively, but yet we live as though my hope is set in the here and now. We live that way, a lot of people. And that's why COVID made so many people scared and frightful because they thought they're going to lose it all. Everything they built was based right on this earth, life under the sun, as if there is no God. But what drives them crazy? We all know this is temporary and there's got to be something bigger. But if you're living for the here and now as if there is no more, you're going to be miserable. And God set it in your heart, eternity. He made it that way, yes.
You know, I have a hard time really understanding eternity.
Well, yeah, better get in line.
I mean, we've never experienced it.
No.
And we want to think of it.
I mean, a million years, we say, well, what's the next year? 1,000,001. Well, that is like day one.
I know.
It doesn't make any sense. We can't even comprehend it.
You can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
Everything has an end.
That's right. But when you think that way, what does this short 70 years of this life mean? Nothing in the big picture, does it? Yes, Mary.
Just a quick comment on what he was saying. Eternity is just absence of time. God created time for our time, not for his time. He just live in time. He's in the now.
That's very insightful, and I wasn't going down that path because it's a whole nother discussion, but did God create time for us? He lives outside of time, so there's not even days. You just exist. With him or without him. That's really what eternity is. You are. That's all. Yes, I can't comprehend because we live in a linear world, time. And how do you live outside of a linear world with the clock ticking? Well, he does, because Jesus said before Abraham, I still am. I am. What? See, time is a concept for us. He lives outside it. And then you say, well, I don't understand that. Well, get in line. Yes, Max.
I'm getting old. I am. I'm getting tired.
Yes.
And you talk up here, and there's no night,
Yes.
so you don't rest.
Yes. And that happens. That'll be Ecclesiastes 12. He talks about what happens. You escape sleep to. Yeah. But that's helpful when you get closer to death. You start seeing things the way Solomon does. Like, wow, there's something more important than just all this labor I did. Who had their hand up here? Someone? Eileen? Oh, Clinton, go ahead.
Ecclesiastes 2:24 is one that gives me hope that that's the good it's going to get.
Yeah.
Good.
When I think it gets better, with that verse, with a couple more, you're right. Yeah.
But for now,
Yeah. Well, I think even now, that's where we're going. But if you feel depressed about going to work tomorrow, that's good. That's where you ought to be, because now we're going to lift that up, right? Okay? Yes, Mary.
I keep thinking about something what Heather said earlier, how you made your house and so forth.
Yes.
Well, that's what God did. In the beginning,
Oh, yeah.
he created the world and it was perfect.
It was perfect.
And he has eternity in his heart.
Yeah.
But yet man comes on this totally fouled up.
Because sin, right? Yes.
So he has.
He understands that. Yes.
it's just a question. I don't know, but we're different from the animals
they don't even have a concept of time.
They just live in the now.
Yeah.
That's why they're therapeutic.
Yeah.
This is my question, is
Oh.
part of this eternity in the heart the fact that man and woman, we're searching for meaning?
Yes.
We're searching for,
Yes.
and if we can't find it in money or pleasure or whatever, meaning, something.
Well, again, Solomon tried to find it in being top dog, having the best, the most, and he said, that didn't satisfy me.
But does that have to do with this eternity in our heart?
Yes, because he realized someone else is going to get it. I'm going to die, and the fool dies. We're in the same place. We're both dead. Who gets what I had built? What a waste of time. If the fool and the smart guy end up in the same place, dead, I should have been a fool. No, that's where he's going. But the answer is not that easy, though. Yes. All right, Stan.
I just want to read Romans 8:18. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us.
The glory to be revealed, yeah. See, when you put God back in the picture, everything's going to make sense. And that's what we got to do. And he does that right here because he says, God has given us this task. God has set this idea of working in your heart. God has put eternity in your heart. You got to put God back in the picture, then everything starts to make sense. And without it, you're going to go crazy.
And that's one thing he didn't do back in chapter 2, because what was it?
Myself, right.
Everything was, look what I did.
Yeah. And that's what we tried to emphasize. Good. So, chapter 3, here's the answer. Now he's going, we're going to turn the page. He says, I know there's nothing better for them, that's people in this world working, to rejoice and do good in one's lifetime. Be happy and do good. Well, how? Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks see good in his labor. What does that mean? When you're out there plowing that field with 2 oxen, is that hard work, laborious under the sweat of the sun? But when you get those rows plowed and they're just perfectly straight and the ground's turned up and you plant it, and then you start seeing in those seeds germinate and they grow into wheat and it starts to grow, doesn't that give you a sense of satisfaction? Well, it does. You know, and you just thank God for the work you did and you planted something and it's growing. I mean, I picked blueberries this morning before I came, and it's just like, God, I can't believe I'm just picking blueberries off the bush when I have to go to the store otherwise to pay $5 a pound or whatever. And they're just like free, right? But no, I had to plant them and nurture them. And there was a fawn. I have them netted all the way over so no birds can get them. So yesterday, I look at it and there's a doe outside, and her baby spotted fawn was inside the net just having a field day eating blueberries. It's like, oh, great. You labor and toil, right? Here's what it says. The joy is eating those stupid blueberries. They're just so nice to pick them for free and eat in your mouth. You eat so many, you get sick of them. You still eat them. That every man who eats and drinks sees good in his labor. Notice this. This is what? So when you sit down with a friend and you share a meal, and you just visit and laugh and cry and talk about things in life, and you're sharing this food that you've provided for yourself by your labor, that's a gift of God. The things we do at 2 o'clock getting together, that's a gift of God. When you get together with your family and eat a meal like you did for your parents' anniversary, that's a fruit of all of his labor. All those children and grandchildren come together, that's a gift of God. That's a simple, easy, quiet life. I work hard, enjoy the work, the process, but I enjoy the fruit of my labor. I don't feel guilty about it because I worked for it, and it's a gift of God. And why would I ever feel shame and guilty for what God has given me because of the fruit of my labor? No. Now, do I put my hope in this stuff? No. Is my meaning tied up in it? No, it's just a blessing. And thank you, God. Now, someone had their hand. Mary.
I was just going to go back to Genesis 1 when God created Adam and Eve. He told them to do four different things. Have a family, be fruitful and multiply.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Have a family, have dominion over the animals,
Yes.
the birds and the fish. Grow a garden and prune it.
Yeah.
And eat of the garden.
Eat.
That's all he said to
It's same principle in it.
He didn't say
Work.
don't build houses or anything
That's right. That's a simple life. And I know sometimes like, why am I working? Enjoy the work. And Clinton's really good. He enjoys what he's doing. And if you don't love your job, you got to go to work. But when you love your job, you're not going to work. When you're going paid to go play, and that's a blessing, isn't it? It says, I know everything God does will remain forever, right? Mariano alluded to this. There is nothing to add to it. There's nothing to take from it. For God is so worked that man should fear him. We know this is temporary. What he does will be forever. So I put no trust in the temporary. I just enjoy it for the moment. And this is a big word now today, be present. Be present in the moment. There's some value to that, but the world is using that without God in the picture at all. But in being present, quit worrying about yesterday, what you can't do anything about, and quit worrying about tomorrow, which you can't do anything about, and just enjoy what you have today for the fruit of your labor, because it's a gift of God. God will take care of the rest. Yes, Max.
Barbara, 55 years, and I enjoyed every bit of it.
Good.
I mean, I had a car wreck and I couldn't do it no more. I miss it so bad.
Just the labor. It's fun.
I miss that.
There's two ways you could think about cutting hair. What a vain job, because as soon as you cut it, it grows back. The other side of it is, as soon as you cut it, grows back, and I got another job. It's all about your attitude, isn't it? It's all about your attitude. All right. Yeah, how good they look. Well, we hope so. Hey, I got my haircut. Oh, yeah. All right, we're almost done. The answer keeps coming. I've seen nothing better than man should be happy in his what? Isn't that beautiful? You should enjoy what you're doing. And you say, I don't. I understand there are jobs that aren't the best, but mostly it's an attitude, isn't it? He wants us to be happy in our activities, because that is his lot. Because who's going to bring him to see what will come after him? So here's the explanation for all this. And it's going back to the great equalizer, death, chapter 5. As he, man, came naked from his mother's womb, so he will return as he came. Naked I came, naked I'll return. Now we know this is true. The next line, he will take nothing from the fruit of his labor into the next world. Not a car, not a home, not an IRA, nothing. Nothing from the fruit of his labor that he can carry in his hand. You might have it, but you'll drop it when you enter the next realm. When you know that, what does that teach you then? Wisdom. Enjoy it when? Now. Right now. Right now. Spend it while you got it, because tomorrow you won't. You'll be dead. Now, I'm not saying you don't leave an inheritance for your kids. I'm just saying, well, man, we put so much confidence and we worry about not having a big treasure. But we put confidence in the treasure when the treasure that should be in God, right? So, this is a grievous evil. Exactly as a man is born, that's how he's going to die. And I'll be polite as I can, but talking about your dad. I mean, you come to this world, a baby, totally dependent on someone else. How do you leave it? Totally dependent on someone else. And in one ways, it's sad because you lose a lot of your pride and dignity, but that's just the way the cycle of life is. And that's what he's saying. So what is the advantage to him who toils for the wind? Throughout his life, he eats in darkness with great vexation, sickness, and anger. This guy doesn't get it. He's trying to chase the wind. Just stop and enjoy the moment, the fruit of your labor. Here's what I've seen good and fitting. To eat and drink and enjoy oneself in all his labor. This is like the third time we've seen this, right? So the message is what? Just enjoy what you have and what God has given you while you can. And if it's just a simple meal, make the most of it. Enjoy oneself in one's labor, which he toils in the sun under the few years of his life, which God has given him, for this is his reward. Your reward on this earth is to enjoy the fruit of your labor. Furthermore, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he's also empowered him to what? Eat from the riches and wealth. No guilt, because he doesn't give everyone riches and wealth, but enjoy it and use it to his glory. But enjoy it and don't feel bad about it. That's your reward in life. And so this is the gift of God. That's the second time we see it. He will not often consider the years of his life because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. This is a beautiful statement. When you're occupied with the gladness and joy of your heart, you're not worried about dying tomorrow. Isn't that what it says? He will not consider the years of his life. Like, how many do I got left? Because he's having too much fun, enjoyment, what? Right now. He's not worried about life slipping by and, oh, I'm going to die, because he's just enjoying life today. And then some days he dies. So here's the summary. Well, is this impressive what Psalm is teaching us? I commend pleasure. Not pleasure of the world. Don't get confused with that. But God put all these perfect gifts for us to enjoy. James says that, right? Chapter 1. There's nothing good for man under the sun except to eat and drink and be merry. That's the sixth time. I think he's trying to get the message that, now drink doesn't mean drunk. It just means enjoy eat and drink. That's what we do. And just be happy. This will stand by him in his toils through the days of his life. What does that mean? Those good times will help carry you through the work and the hard times. Right? And when you're toiling under the sun, trying to make a paycheck, you'll think of the fruit of your labor you enjoy, and you realize this will produce some more, and it'll carry you, which God has given under the sun. So go then, eat your bread with what? I don't think there's probably anything sadder than people eat their meals and they're miserable. There's no thanking God. There's no joy. They're just worried. So I wish I had something better, or I don't know, it's just a sad attitude. So let me talk about, there's a movement today that everyone has a right to universal income. You know what that means? Every citizen of a country should have a minimum wage just given to them. No work. Now Solomon was the extreme one way, just a workaholic. This one is what? You have a right to life and heaven. What is going to give you $1,000 a month? Now, some states or cities are actually experimenting with that right now. Now, we're not being political, but everything we do in this country, we have to see through a spiritual lens. If God's spiritual DNA that he embedded in us is to work to be happy and to enjoy the fruit of your labor, universal income is the antithesis of what God designed you to be. It makes you dependent upon another, and after a while you become miserable because you know you're not independent, you're not self-sufficient, and then you create this victimhood attitude that everyone owes you and they're not taking care of you. It's suicidal. But when you remove God from the picture, love and empathy says, well, we should take care of everyone. No, Paul says, exactly. In 2 Thessalonians 3, they thought the world was coming in, Jesus was coming soon. Some of the Christians were saying, well, I'm done working, so why work? Because Christ is coming tomorrow. And they were asking others to feed them. They weren't living a quiet life. And Paul said, they're not following the traditions we get from God. See, this is a mandate from God. If you want to be happy, work. And if you don't work, don't feed him, because you're ruining his soul spiritually. Don't feed him. Wow, that's strong, isn't it? Universal income, that is totally the antithesis of who God is and how we've been made. Does that make sense? And I don't want to be political, but we have to see everything through a spiritual lens. Every decision we make, how we vote and everything. How would God want to conduct this earth? Notice this. Let your clothes be white all the time. What does that mean? You take care of yourself. Present yourself best. Enjoy life with a woman you love all the days of your fleeting life. Does he acknowledge it's fleeting? But what? Enjoy the relationship God has given you, which he has given to you under the sun. For this is your reward in life and in your toil, which you've labored under the sun. Do we labor under the sun? Yes, but here's your joy. Your family, your friends, your meals, enjoy taking a trip, doing whatever it is, but remembering others and excelling in love still, right? That's all is included. So whatever your hand finds to do it. Jordan, this is for you. Whatever you find to do in your life, you do it with all your might. That's when you're going to be the happiest. Now, I'd like to say men do this more than women, but it's not true. But men have a more, God created us for respect and honor. That's why it says, husbands, love your wives. They need love and feel that kind of love as Christ loved the church. But women, respect your husbands. They need that. If they're going to lead and fight for their wife, they need to feel like they are the leader. And they need to work with all their might. That's when they feel the best about themselves. And we got a bunch of weak-kneed men today because they don't work. If they do, they don't work with all their might. They do the bare minimum, and then they go home and complain. And their wives don't respect them. Work with all your might. Because when you get to hell or heaven, there's no planning or activity or knowledge. Do it now, right? So, this is the conclusion. We're going to put what? God back in the picture. Are you going to find meaning without God in life under the sun? No. But if you understand his gift to you while you're on this earth is to work and enjoy the fruit of your labor and be happy, then I'm going to fear God. I'm going to keep him as center focus of my life, and I'm going to keep his commandment because that applies to every person. Because God's going to hold everyone and every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether good or evil. Aren't we thankful that God left us this letter? And I just hope you feel better about what you're doing and how you're living, because it is a toil sometimes. It's a burden. And it's supposed to be that way. But we can find happiness in it as well. Any thoughts or comments as we bring it to close? I went a little longer than I wanted, but you guys had a lot of things to say. Heather?
I wouldn't have, but you asked.
All right.
I just like this conclusion, just personally, I mean, God's the one who authored that, but fear God because that's also the protection. When you keep everything in perspective that I'm doing it his way because it's for my
Yeah.
benefit. So if I fear him enough not to do something stupid on my own, I mean, it's for life,
Right.
right?
That's right. That's right. It's going to help your work and everything you do. All right. Thank you. We're going to sing a song. It's one we don't know yet, right? And we're going to let's stand and sing it together, and then we'll have some announcements when we close.